Thank you, fine lady. So I'm going to share the agenda here for today's meeting. So welcome to the meeting. This is, I think, the second annual meeting we've done as a virtual meeting. Hopefully, when the pandemic ends, we will begin to open this up to the world in a physical location. So the first order of business is to ask you all if you think you should be an eligible voter and you were not on the list. Are there any people who want to be added to the voting list? I'm stopping this so I can see people either chat or say something.
I'm Patrick Seibel. I understand that the voting eligibility extends to people who were active at the beginning of the year or earlier.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'll just observe then since I'm new. Thank you.
Patrick, there is a provision for new arrivals. So I know you didn't start until February, but you've demonstrated your commitment to the station. If you ask the membership, they would consider adding you. So it's up to you.
Okay, given this is my first meeting of this sort, I thank you very much, but I'll abstain and just observe.
Thank you. Are there any other voters or people who would like to be added to the voters list? Hearing none, we'll move on. The president's report is short. We've had an incredibly difficult year. The pandemic from COVID-19 has pretty much shut down normal operations at the station for 15 months, and we're starting to turn the corner and open back up again. I thank you very much. The economic state of the station is pretty good right now. We benefited from a small business administration paycheck protection program loan, which was subsequently forgiven. And we got a wonderful CPB grant that was above and beyond our usual CPB grant. And we also had a wonderful bequest from a listener who passed away. And so in the further reports, you'll hear some comments from Susan about our future, and those will be important. But where we stand today is in pretty good shape financially, and the station is in pretty good shape physically, and you'll hear more from the staff reports. So at this time, I'd like to move on to a short treasurer's report from Marty. And I will stop sharing here and pass it to you, Marty.
Okay, I'll try to share the screen, make sure. Okay, is it visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, David was very accurate. He said a couple things I was going to say. We have accounts in two different banks, and here's the accounts in Heartland and Summit. The PPP loan, Small Business Administration Payroll Protection Plan loan is in Heartland. And we just had that forgiven recently. And we need to look at now where we want to put that money. We had it in a separate fund. We want to put it somewhere where we'll earn a little bit more money. But you can see that we have almost 250,000 in Heartland and almost $530,000 in Summit. This is the treasurer's report that I gave to the board in the last board meeting, and you will see that there's a decline in business dividend checking in Summit that of $29,174. A decline in the balance, that is just nothing to worry about. It is normal operating expenses. They're higher in some months than others. So we are still in very good financial shape. We have been for quite a while, but it's the generous bequest and the two government funds really helped us. One of the jobs of the treasurer is to warn the board of anything that might be of financial impact. There's nothing directly to be warned about, but we do need to think about the future, and the board has heard about this. If we have some very expensive board equipment upgrades to the soundboards in the studios, whatever they're called, I'm not the technical person, but those will be expensive expenses. I understand our technical person is working on some ways to possibly improve our boards without having to go out and spend a lot of money on them. But that is one possibility of some expenses coming. Another possibility is the decline somewhat in our donor base because of aging. Young people aren't listening to the station as much as we would like. And so some of our donors are reaching the end of their donating days or the end of their life. So that is a concern to the board that we've been talking about, and some action, I think, pretty soon would be necessary to come up with a committee to address that. But other than that, we're in good financial shape. So we should have in the bank, according to recommendations by organizations that know, 3 to 6 months operational funds, and we have that. I think our operational funds are about 40,000 a month. It's been a while since I've looked at that, but we have that balance, as you can see, in the money we're using for operational funds. So there's no serious warnings, but we do need to think about the future. Are there any questions about what you see? We're required to have, one person asked me this outside of a meeting, but we're required to have about $20 to $25. Well, that's not the case in Summit account, but we're requiring to have a small amount in a particular account in order to be in a credit union. So that's why we have several accounts with very small numbers in them. Well, if there are no questions, I'll turn it over to Dave.
Thank you. If you could stop sharing, then I'll share mine.
Yeah, it's going to take a moment. Unless you can do it.
I think I can do, yeah.
Yeah, if you can do it, go ahead. My shaking is causing problems with my mouse. There we go.
There we go. We now move on to staff reports. And I'd like to take them Well, I asked the staff this year if they would be willing to read their staff reports themselves rather than having one staff member read all the reports. Um, and there were no huge objections. So if we could, the first report was Shally's for the News Talk and Public Affairs. Would you like to proceed, Shally?
Sure. Can you see me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I'll just dive right into my report. Okay. Didn't expect to go first. When work closed down, we were charged with converting hundreds of volunteer living rooms, bedrooms, and closets into tiny broadcast studios. I distributed countless microphones, headphones, recorders, sound editing software, trained volunteers, and made guides on best practices for broadcasting at home. Worked with individuals to make sure they could still do their show. Some shows were pre-produced. A few stayed live, The Buzz, A Public Affair, and the 6 p.m. news, and a couple others by request. But each of those daily shows took a staff member or a volunteer to engineer. Myself, a public affair producer, Rochelle Wilson, staff member, Doug Holtz, as well as volunteers Ken Brady and Dylan Brogan, contributed significant time each day to engineer. And Tom Jones gracefully provided a sounding board and kept up with our changing lists of technical issues in the studios, which are mostly fixed, mostly. As I write this, we are just beginning the first step of reopening, bringing back sorely needed engineers for shows. I know it's sort of a weird and long process, but I'm treating this somewhat like a refresher training plus additional training on how to do a show with the host at home. I appreciate everyone's patience as we refamiliarize engineers with the studios and our new method of virtual broadcasting, and provide a bit of refresher training along the way, dealing with the new equipment and equipment that has been broken. It's been a tough year. The news department ably and, in my view, ethically kept up with a summer of racial justice protests, even as the news seemed to change by the minute. I could say a lot here. I had a lot of quite literally sleepless nights, observing what was happening, going back into engineer at 8 a.m., staying 12 hours and, repeating the cycle. But there's a lot I could say. I'll just say covering such a large and nuanced movement was complex, and it pushed our mental, emotional, and physical endurance. Could not have done it without Jonah Chester's grace under pressure. What a moment to witness. The WORT News Department won 10 awards for our coverage last year. We took home 5 Wisconsin Broadcasters Association awards, including a first place win in spot news for Jonah Chester. We took home 5 Milwaukee Press Club awards as well, including a gold win in a hard feature for myself, and a gold in best writing for Stu Levitan. I'd also like to honor Martin Roccazzoli, Jade Iseria Ramos, and Jennifer Fields, who also took home awards. Amidst the extra demands of the past year, I did manage to onboard literal dozens of new hosts, reporters, feature producers, and collective members during the pandemic who all started remotely, which is incredible to think that some people came and went during the pandemic without ever seeing the inside of our studios. But I'm grateful to our new volunteers who have stuck and are here. And I cannot wait for them to see the inside of the station for the first time and to begin working and doing their show from WORT, which is set up to be a broadcast studio, a news reporting studio, rather than trying to make do at home and turn that into a production studio. This year came with, as Marty explained, financial costs as well as opportunity costs. I had to put an entirely different list of projects on hold with the pandemic, and I'm just starting to plan for those again. And it came with some personal costs too. But in an overused inspirational quote from the pandemic, Mr. Rogers said to look for the helpers. And I am really privileged to always find the people who are helping in a really difficult time. So thank you to everyone for your amazing, performance and showing up in the past year. Can't wait to have everyone back in the studios. And yeah, thank you. Happy annual meeting.
Thank you very much. I don't know if we can do applause on a Zoom meeting, but we all applaud you for doing such a fantastic job. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Ah, the singular sound. Hi, Sybil.
Slow clap. Anyway.
And next up on staff reports is Sybil.
All righty then. Everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right. Sounds good. I don't know if you can see me or not, though. I can't tell from this setup
I
I've
can
got.
see you.
Okay, good. Now, as long as there's no planes, sirens, dogs barking, the neighbor trying to talk, I'll get through this. So 2020 was one hell of a curveball for the music department. Forced us to adapt to the situation in so many ways. There was temporary changes, and then we're now in the process of reversing those changes. And so still going forward with the programming, planning for the future, revising the volunteer handbook, making new policies, and new technology, all at the same time. So this keeps us very, very busy. Oh yeah, let me get a better shot here. Once we are all back where we started, we're gonna just keep the momentum going and push forward on many, many projects we've been working on, including digitizing the whole entire CD library. We'll still keep some CDs available for people to use, but making them available digitally is what's going to allow us to have some more room to take the CD library, not touching the vinyl. We're keeping our historic vintage collection that makes the room sound so good, but we will want to remodel that CD library into music workspaces and even a meeting lounge type area. And we need more places where we can keep on training on and off air volunteers. We're working to produce more in-studio sessions and live remotes. And we have recent events and coming up events that are all in line with that mission, because we're determined to reach new listener sponsors with outstanding social media content. We're going to get involved with more community events. So we need you all to keep us informed of your programs, specials, and your ideas so we can help you promote them every way we can. We'll be asking for your cooperation on doing these live remotes and program preemptions. We're going to do everything possible to increase listener engagement. We're now asking a host to fill out an annual review form. We understand your current needs, your future plans, and it will help us help you do your very best programs and plan ahead for those changes. So on that note, changes. Terry O has left Diaspora. We have a wonderful team filling in right now. We're going to do an open hire for Thursday mornings. Megan Elliott left her Infinite Variety just to join Query. So we didn't lose her, kept her, just shifted to another show. And then we got Simone LaPierre as a new host for her Infinite Variety. Tony Endless stepped down for Weekly World Noise. Hope he's still going to be around to sub when we're back in the studios. But we now have Eric Kramer alternating Sunday nights. Bill and Bobby Malone retired to Texas, but not from WORT. They're heard on the fourth Wednesdays each month, with Aaron's help producing their show remotely. The talented Art Stevenson and Nate Gibson joined Stephen and Marianne Daggett on the rest of the Wednesdays. DJ Catwoman left Fifth Friday's rock show at 8 p.m., but that meant it was open for some great specials, like one from the former New Needles WORT host, 80s prodigal punk pioneer Reasonable Facsimile, doing his 40th anniversary special. That was April 30th. Coming up on July 2nd, we have this Nirvana special. Never before heard music and interviews and the photos that were taken at WORT, the cover story for Madison Magazine this month. So a lot of hoopla about that. And we'll have a live listening party for that at Parched Eagle at 8 p.m. on this coming Friday, and everyone's invited. And we'll get to play some stuff we can't play on the air because it was a bootleg Nirvana recording. We don't want to endanger WORT's airways, but we found a creative way to be able to talk about that and share that with the public and drum up interest. Well, again, making sure we don't run afoul of the copyright laws. So that's this Friday at 8. And then Chuck Prophet, there's going to be a live remote from the Central Park sessions on August 13th. So lots of exciting stuff coming up. Less exciting is having to offer condolences to hosts. A few I know of, Harry Ragg, FRP, and Art Shuna, who lost family members during the past year. And also mourning friends like a former World Folk host many of you knew, Bill Liebig. I believe that Theodora passed in the past year, but I'm not sure if it was more than a year ago. And I'm really sorry if there's anyone that I missed. Shout it out. Let me know. Put their name up because we want to make sure to remember them. Jeff Martin, yes, he was a receptionist and worked on Wednesdays a lot with Gary Alderman, was a good friend and a jazz lover. Yeah, that was recent learned of Jeff Martin's loss. So, yeah, make sure to mention anyone else I missed. Yeah, we got a great new partnership with MOD Media. They had that exciting recording that we did of Rain Stern to submit to the Tiny Desk concert. So you could see WORT Studios nationally publicized with NPR's promotion on that. And if she wins, it'll be even better because we can say that she did it here. They have got a reopening video that you all will be seeing within the next week or two that to welcome hosts back. So that's pretty neat. And we're looking forward to a great partnership doing a lot more with video, photos, audio with MOD Media. And we've got some new off-air volunteers that will help all of that happen. New young people that we're bringing in, just like we say that we want to. We definitely agree with Marty and what others have said. It's a big task to have to try to ascertain what the audience is and how to reach and bring in younger people. And that's a huge goal for this coming year. And then I just want to say special thanks to Glenn. It was such a great pleasure to work with for so many years and took such loving care of all of you volunteers. So now we're already halfway through the year. I'm just glad to wake up from the last one. Thanks, everybody. So unless you got questions, I'm done.
Dave, you're muted.
Couldn't find myself to unmute myself. Aaron, are you able to read your staff report from the phone? Aaron's listening on the phone, but he's muted, I think. So,
Aaron, if you hit *6, it'll unmute you. I think.
Oh, there we go.
Got it.
I thought I had to just mute my phone. Yeah, I have poor internet at my home, and if I do Zoom, I can't see very well and I can't hear very well. So it's a lot better to be able to hear. I'll read my report. It's pretty short. First half of 2021 was a continuation of what we learned in 2020. We were wrangling shows and archives and promoted just a few events. I spent a lot of time downloading and ripping music and reconfiguring parts of the CD library. And WRT was a pretty well-oiled machine after a year of being mostly virtual. And the fact that the technology existed to enable hosts to record at home and send us their shows, which we then placed on the air, is still rather incredible and fortuitous. And community radio managed to stay on the air despite the challenges, and its experience made us stronger as a group and smarter about how to create compelling content. The light at the end of the tunnel is getting brighter, and we're just now bringing hosts back on the air, which will bring some relief for the music department. There's a lot of work to be done that was derailed by the pandemic, like organizing regular live music on the air, selecting music and information from local musicians, setting up remotes throughout Madison, and making connections to our peer organizations to see how we can better reach the community. I enjoyed the autonomy of being able to keep things trucking along. We didn't have any choice, but I'm hoping to make this next year a lot better. And I think it'll be really easy to do since we'll all be in person. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. I think we all owe you a big debt of gratitude for all the work that you've done. The whole station, of course, has worked out well, but you in particular, and Shally and a couple of others have just kept us going in times where it would be hard for any station to keep operating. So thank you.
It was a very good learning experience. That's all I can say. It was very strange to run a station remotely.
We this whole pandemic would have been wholly different if it happened 50 years ago. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Or even 10 years ago, trying to get people to record on their computers at home. That's, we lucked out.
Yeah, even 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. The next staff report will be Tom.
Oh God, here we go. As unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, this past year was crazy because of the pandemic, obviously, but it did help us do some things because there weren't rafts of people around the building all the time. So give us some room to actually work on certain things. But we did a full update and repair of the pledge database system, Civi CRM, which was badly broken, and it is working much better now. There was a major website breach on WORT-FM.org that got cleaned up twice, actually, because they reinfected it right away, but we've been clean for the last year now. All the computers in the building are not attached. They're all Windows 10 and they're all connected to Active Directory. So we can control how things work and minimize errors that might crop up when the computers work anyway, Shally, right? Yeah, I knew that would get at least a monosyllabic reaction. The air conditioning at the transmitter was replaced again. Along with air conditioning at the transmitter, we did some major updates to the HVAC system at the Bedford Street station, including just bringing in outside air and putting in some air purification elements, which was done initially because of the pandemic. Some of it has proven to be not so effective for the pandemic, but the air quality is certainly cleaner. There's not that wart, musty smell that was always there. That might change as more people are back in the building again, but for right now, it's been much better. One of the big things was, in conjunction with public media apps, we developed the WORT app, which everyone should have on their phone or other mobile device. It's a wonderful addition to our tool set for getting our signal out to the public. Ceiling tiles were replaced in the lobby and the hallway. It looks much cleaner in there, and that should keep, even if we do have some leaks, people will get wet, but they won't have fiberboard crashing on their heads, which will be an improvement. One of the huge things was our license with the FCC is now renewed through December 1st of 2028. That one scared me to death because I don't like government agencies and having to deal with their rules and regulations, but we got through it and we're renewed. The phone system got updated. We got fiber optics both at the station and at the transmitter. Should help our signal going from the station to the transmitter, make it a little more solid. Along with that, we increased the bandwidth from Hoyos because they were just wonderful people to work with, and they were like, we can bump you up.
Mute me again.
The water heater got replaced, which is amazing that it took this long because the old water heater had been in place for about, was it 30 years, something like that. And so I was amazed it was still there, and hopefully this new one will last another 30 years. And along with the app, the website server and the archives and streaming server went to new hardware and new operating systems. They're still housed at 5.9's data center, but it should keep those things stable and humming along. What we've got yet to do now as things progress, we have to get people actually back in the building so we can actually be a WORT community radio station again. Basement windows have issues. I'm waiting for a quote to come in for that, along with a quote for the one window in the lobby that the wood frame is rotted, and we had a ant problem a year ago. But the ants are gone. The rotten wood remains, but I'm still waiting for a quote on that. And the boards in each of the combos are getting really old. They're showing their age. To replace them pretty much is going to mean a complete change of how everything is connected, which is going to be a huge job. But once it's done, it's going to really increase the capabilities that we have going forward, especially if we have another pandemic. Life will be easier if we have this new system in place. And then along with the CD library, we're hoping to get an area built for student journalists to come in and get trained and hopefully work with us.
Right on.
And that will hopefully be in an area in the basement. So we've got some big plans for the building coming up. And that's about it.
That's great. Thank you very much. And Laura comments on the chat, all of this and shifting to remote operations for news and music. It's been really a challenge. And we've been making it up as we go along, which is just fantastic. And all the other radio stations we listen to have had the same problem. I got a message from Molly the day that we closed saying, how are you doing that? So, and Molly's over at WPR now. So we're all struggling with how we did this and how we continue. And now it's changed the way we think about radio. So the next staff report is the business development report. Doug, are you able to read that? Doug, I don't hear you. There you go. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm not hearing you. Sorry.
Doug, if
It looks
you're on
like
the
you're
phone,
muted.
it's *6 to unmute.
Can't hear you, Doug.
Maybe let's move on and circle back to Doug.
All right. That's a great great
Doug,
option.
just look like you're unmuted now. Try it again. No, never mind.
Doug is sharing his screen, so he's silently giving his report. Way to go, Doug. I'll read since we can't get his voice on. It has been an extremely challenging year for me. That's Doug. Businesses were closed and are just now starting to rebound. Underwriting saw a decline as all events-based underwriting grinded to a halt. On a good note, all of our long-term underwriters renewed their contracts in this difficult period.
Yay.
In-person fundraising events have also not been possible.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, the revenue lost by these circumstances was more than made up for by the 2 grants from CPB, totaling more than $200,000. I continue to manage the CPB grant reporting and have several reports I must complete through the year, in addition to managing compliance by staff in completing the anti-harassment training required by the CPB. Their support is well worth the effort. When the station closed to volunteers, I began to engineer the 8 o'clock buzz on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, so those shows could remain live. I filled this spot for 16 months, working
Well done, Doug.
Yep.
working with Brian Standing, Jan Miyazaki, Jerome Dillard from Expo, and Tony Castaneda was a pleasure. They are all so fun. It made it not so bad to be up at 6 a.m. 3 days a week. Our former bookkeeper also resigned in January with 2 weeks' notice, so I had to step in and perform the day-to-day functions of processing daily deposits, running the evergreen donations, completing payroll, keeping credit cards paid, and paying the bills. All of this was being done while I was on the hiring committee for a bookkeeper and then for the volunteer and outreach coordinator. Both of these commitments also took a great deal of time. As I plan for Wortstock and the Willie Street Fair underground stage, I am eager to get back to community events and meeting business owners in the community to discuss support for Wort. Doug Holtz, Business Development Director. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Doug. Let's everybody give Doug a hand. Wortstock, says Dawn. All right. Thanks, Doug. Susan, are you online on the phone?
I am.
Can you unmute and do your listener sponsor development annual report?
Can you not hear me?
Yes, I can.
I can hear you.
Okay.
My mistake.
So, along with every other department, there had to be major changes in order for us to perform pledge drives. We did a year's worth of pledge drives remotely, including the ones from this year, and that was a challenge that I'm very grateful to the volunteers who made that possible, because there was some equipment that they needed, that they had to have. There was a degree of technology comfort that they had to have. And when we started limiting that down, that brought us down to a pretty small pool of volunteers who felt comfortable and were able to handle doing that, which meant that during the pledge drives, they really took on many more hours, some of them as much as 50 during the 2-week pledge drives. And so I'm very grateful for those people. Some volunteers, one who lives next door, stopped by, and we handed over thank you notes that she completed, because hosts were no longer around to do thank you notes. And Karen Leamy, my assistant, really went out, she picked up a ton of slack for the volunteers by doing all the auditing and doing many other things that weren't necessary prior to last year or were handled by volunteers. So just want to acknowledge that, like every other department, we needed more from our volunteers this past year, and I am so grateful that that we got that assistance. So the income for the listener-sponsored development department, and for anyone that's not familiar with what that mouthful means, is just the income that comes from individuals, and it's not from businesses. The only money we get from businesses is the matching funds that they do to match direct employees' contributions. So the income was down from the previous year, which we haven't had it happen very often. It was down. We were at 578,000 last year, and that's 42,000 down from 2019. But the large bequest that Dave mentioned was in 2019. It was $92,000. So that really shot the income up for 2019, made it a challenge to try and match that. And I was really happy that we made up 50,000 of that 92,000 in 2020, in addition to keeping our other income up in other ways. So even though we were down 42, I regarded it as a victory because we didn't have any big bequests come in 2020, but we still made up a lot, over half of it. So the fundraising message was pretty consistent last year. We need money now to make broadcasting possible under these drastically changed conditions. And I think there was so much that our listeners lost in terms of being able to see family, in terms of going out and having regular events that were, and I was regularly calling donors every week because I knew they'd be home. So I would play 4 or 5 calls in an evening just to say, how are we doing? You know, what would you like to see from us that we're not doing? And I really received a grateful message of, you're here, and we really, you're one of the few touchstones that's still available to us, and we are really grateful. So that's what that was the bulk of the fundraising message. And it was, I believe, a clear, urgent, mission-driven message. And for once, keeping the lights on because it was a pandemic was compelling. But I don't believe it's a compelling message when we talk about it every pledge drive year after year under non-pandemic conditions, which is why I'm looking forward to some of the stuff that other departments have mentioned, that I feel like there's a real need for us to be addressing what I'm seeing. I subscribe to several community radio station newsletters, and what I'm seeing is their projects that are addressing programming that is specific to address systemic racism. They're bringing more diverse voices in and that are community-based for news coverage. They have more planned collaborations with local progressive groups that are going to be part of their coverage on different parts of their programming. And I think all of that stuff is something that that is clear and compelling to people now beyond we play great music, we have wonderful news and talk, but if we just want to say we're going to continue the same thing, we're going to have difficulty, I think, competing for bequests and also for new listeners who are interested in aligning with people that are directed that way. So I think the challenge coming up for the board and for staff and for our volunteers is to come up with a vision of what WORT could accomplish in our community given the financial resources. So without that vision, for me to be able to go to our major donors and to talk about, in general, for people who are planning bequests, without some of that visionary, we're going to lose out. It's going to be difficult to get major donors to contribute. It has been difficult, and it's going to be difficult to get bequests at a time when people are our listeners are planning wills and planning what they're going to be doing with our estate. with their estate. Second part of this is a concern that I have voiced pretty consistently to the board, to this board, and in prior years, which is my concern with the decreasing number of new donors to the station. So in 2001 till about 2010, the new donors averaged about 1,500 each year out of about 3,500 donors, or 4,000 donors. From 2014, the number of new donors that had not ever donated to WORT before was 900. And in 2020, that number was 397. And it's just been a steady decline really since 2001. And I think that reflects the fact that we are losing the base. Every year, our donors' average age gets older and older. So even with the new donors, in 2020, I decided that every 10th donor that we added, I would check the age just to get an idea of what the average age was. So the average age of a random 40 that I checked was 54. So they're not young. So the question is, every year, other than the year we got that big bequest in my department, the income from my department has steadily increased for 7 years, and the number of new donors has steadily decreased. And the reason is because of our donor retention improving. So donor retention is the people who gave last year who gave again this year. So the national average for 20 years across nonprofits is 45%. You keep 45% year to year. And it changes. That number might be, is of course different depending what people are different depending on what year you are checking. But somehow that is a magic consistent number that is still the number for 2020 when I checked on it for national organized nonprofits, for national average for nonprofits. But since 2014 at WORT, we've gone from that 45%, which we averaged over 2001 to 2014. It's increased each year. And this past year in 2020, it was 66%. So I really think we're maxing out. There's an adage in that says that if you take the number of donors that you have and you multiply that by 10, that's an approximate idea of your audience. I don't think that's true of WORT. I think we're starting to hit where maybe if you take the number of monthly donors, which yearly donors, total donors, which for us is about 3,200 or about 3,300 in a year, and I think the multiplication number might be as low as 5 for our total audience. And that's why I am encouraging the board and also looking for major donor support to get the reports from the Nielsen reports.
If I'll just butt in, I didn't realize this came up in Susan's report, but the programming committee did complete a report on the feasibility of getting numbers and decided it was not in our best interest, but I'm happy to provide that report should you want it.
I think we should just say that we need to ascertain audience, something that I mentioned, and doesn't matter. We'll find the best way to do it.
Can I finish my report?
I wasn't sure, yeah. And they analyze strategies.
Can you please hold till I'm finished and ask questions or make your statements then?
Roll and away, and it's 2-2. I'll be curious what substance it is, and if he was confused and thought that was an allowable substance, or if it.
Can you proceed, Susan?
I'm hearing someone talk. Is that just my phone? There. It stopped. Okay, so this donor retention has really hidden the loss of really the base of younger listeners. And from what I can tell from analyzing donor data, and there's no one's shown a 100% correlation between who's donating and who's listening. So it's possible there might be younger listeners who aren't donating. Generally, people donate more as they get older and they have the funds for it. But I have been at two previous organizations, the Humane Society and the United Way, and we saw substantial participation by people in their 20s at both of those organizations that I'm not seeing among donor activity at WORT. So I think we need to get some kind of baseline of where we are before we set out trying to figure out what we need to do. I think we need a clear idea of, how much of a problem it is and not just relying on my donor data. At the end, I want to say the station, it was lonely, it was quiet, it was dark. We turned the lights off in any rooms that we weren't regularly using. But I really appreciated working day to day with the people who were really going out of their way to make everything possible. And that was, and I'm talking about all the volunteers who might have been at a distance, but were struggling with learning new technologies. I think every single one of us was forced to do or welcome doing. And a special shout out to Tom, who made a number of things possible for my department to do things under the new circumstances. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Susan. We really appreciate your work, especially trying to do pledge drive in times when you can't get to the station.
You're welcome.
You've done things that we hadn't conceived before. So the next report is from Glenn.
Since I was not forewarned, I don't have it in front of me, so maybe Adrian would read it for me, please. Or you, Dave?
I can read it, or Adrian can. I haven't heard from Adrian yet, so I'll be happy to read it. As I begin my retirement after more than 21 years as WORT's first volunteer and outreach coordinator, I extend heartfelt thanks to everyone who I've had the honor and privilege to work with. Thank you for contributing your time, talents, and financial support to maintain and improve WORT's service to our community. Over the past 15 months, I have missed seeing and working with you at the station and at community events. I have especially missed our volunteer receptionists and hope that they will soon be able to return to the station. I am grateful to all the volunteers who created programming remotely, and to those volunteers who were onboarded and trained without having access to the station. I am so happy that the phased reopening of the station to volunteers has begun. The major focus of my final 6 weeks was creating the best possible handover of the volunteer and outreach coordinator position. The staff collective and the board put considerable effort into revising and updating the position description, utilizing suggestions from the UW Diversity Forum presentation, creating a fair and equitable hiring process. Our hiring committee of 2 staff members, 2 board members, and 3 volunteers worked diligently from late February through late April, guided by our incredible chair, Jane Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Among a pool of highly qualified applicants, the hiring committee unanimously recommended that the board offer the position to Adrienne Ranney. Having worked closely with Adrienne over the past weeks, I am thrilled with how quickly she has settled into the position. She has incredible leadership and organizational skills, and I think she is a perfect fit for the position. Adrienne will be a great asset to the station, expanding and improving our volunteer program and deepening connections within our community. And please join me in applauding Glenn's work for the station. Thank you very much, Glenn. Adrian, I know that this is a surprise or maybe a surprise. Are you able to read your report or would you like me to read it for you?
No, I can read it. I've got it right here. Thank you, though. I began my onboarding and training on May 31st with Glenn Mitroff and the WORT Collective. Glenn's last day was June 11th, 2021, and since then I have been working on my own in the position. Glenn provided thorough, in-depth training, which left me equipped to perform my duties right away. Glenn has also left open a line of communication for me to contact him if I have any questions, which is incredibly courteous of him. Since operating as the sole volunteer and outreach coordinator beginning June 12th, I have reached out to the following organizations and have a presence at their events and performed promo exchanges. So this isn't a totally inclusive list, but I just wanted to name off a few things I've done, so I wanted to keep it short. But I'm sorry, I'm still not totally sure how to pronounce this name. I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I think that might be
Chakalia.
Thank you, Glenn. Madison Center for Self-Determination. On 6/19, so June 19th, we joined the Juneteenth March from the Fountain of Life Church to Penn Park. WORT volunteers and I carried WORT banners as we marched in the parade. Our logo was also included on promotional material in exchange for us airing a promo for the event. Jonah Chester collected box pops for the kiosk, which is becoming a new feature that I will help with at events, so upcoming events. Also on June 19th was It's a Us Thing, Juneteenth celebration. And after the parade at Penn Park, I went to Elver Park to table this separate Juneteenth event. I'd recruited volunteers to table throughout the day. DJ Boss Lady informed me of this event and was a huge help getting it organized. Briar Patch Youth Services is presenting the Teens Like Us Pride Prom, which occurred yesterday, June 26th, where we tabled the event with show hosts and volunteers, and we have been airing a promo for this event in exchange for tabling space. And that was actually, just on a side note, that was a great event. It kind of picked up more towards the end, and we actually got quite a few, and by quite a few, I mean like 6 teenagers interested in a summer job or padding their resume. So that was pretty exciting. And then coming up on June 29th, so that is this Tuesday, the Madison Public Library is presenting It Takes a Village. So Shali Pittman informed me of the organizer's interview on the 8 o'clock buzz. I reached out to him about tabling the event for a promo exchange. Our logo is also present on their flyers for the event. Many volunteers have already signed up for the event to table. And that's going to be very exciting. We will also be doing some box pops there. It might be me going around getting them. We might have somebody else, but we'll be doing that at that event. I am working on a number of new partnerships with local organizations with a focus on more engagement from younger listeners, LGBTQI listeners, communities of color, and the West and South Side of Madison neighborhoods where WORT is not as present. There are many more events planned for the summer, including the volunteer picnic on Sunday, July 11th. I am thrilled to be part of WORT, and I'm so excited for the future.
Thank you very much. Welcome aboard. You're actually not new. You've been here for some time with
the Access Hour.
Access Hour. I blanked out on Access Hour. Yes.
No, it's fine.
Very good. That brings us to the end of staff reports. Are there any questions or comments about staff reports? Shally has made a comment about Susan's report, and she's going to send the programming committee report to Susan, and I'm sure that discussion will continue. That's an important discussion, and we look forward to that. That's a very important discussion to figure out where we are and where we're going. So let's refer here to our, we just finished staff reports. So now If there are no comments for staff or questions for staff, we'll move on to the candidate statements. These are the candidates for this current
Esty
election.
did have a question. Esty had a question for Susan and said, how do you explain the trends you outlined?
I don't know that I understand if she means explain with data, which would be how did I come, or what exactly she is the question. I'm sorry.
She's there.
Okay, let me answer. So it seems to me like WORT is doing very well in many different ways, and also keeps expanding its online presence, i.e. not staying just on the radio. And yet we seem to be losing, I don't know if listeners, but people who pledge and people who donate. And I'm trying to understand why that would happen just when things look so good. Of course, this past year, a lot of people lost income, so it's a freak year. But if it's something that is more permanent, I'm just trying to understand what might be the reasons for that.
Well, I can send you information on the fact that people under 40, almost none of them own a radio other than in their car.
Right.
So they
are online in a significant way.
They found there has been a huge increase in platforms for listening to music, for getting your news information, and a lot of the studies show that's where people are going to do that, because the platforms offer, such as YouTube and stuff. If you've ever been on YouTube and started to look at music and you end up, waking up 2 hours later and you're just gone from video to video suggestions. This is speculation. You're asking me why I think the numbers are what they are, and I think that is important for the committee. I've done a lot of research on that, Esty, but I really think we do need. Sometimes things go to committee and it doesn't always work out, but it's our best resource at WORT to have people actually figuring out, where are we? Can we fix this? Which is a question, can we increase younger donors, or are we in the situation where radio and TV were trying to get back a radio audience when TV first came out, when radio was massive, and TV siphoned a lot of that away because people wanted what TV offered. Now we have to figure out, can we supply those things that people are looking for among the younger people? And I think that only can come from actually talking to younger people, especially in our community, and figuring out what it is that makes compelling streaming, because, they're not going to do it on radios. By 2025, car radios will have all the options of streaming on them, so there won't even be a need to tune into radio in your car as the only option. So I look forward to having a big effort by WORT to look into this, Esty, and I'm happy to share all the stuff that I've been collecting about this that points in that direction, and points in that direction for all of community radio stations. And I think it's something that the NFCB is concerned about as well, and is starting to look into, according to my discussions with Ernesto and Gretchen and Sally.
Okay, well, it looks like some staff members have their thoughts on that, and I don't want to take too much time from this meeting to try and understand it, but I guess I would like to encourage the right people to look into it and continue making our presence known in the ways that people now listen. Because I think the station is doing a great job. So thanks.
You're welcome.
Shally mentioned in the comments that we are on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and we have local news smartphone apps like Newsbreak. Shally mentions.
Right. If I can just,
Go ahead.
I only bring that up because I don't think that this is actually the appropriate forum to get into measuring audience surveys and engagement. It's not a settled issue at the staff level. It was taken to the programming committee. And as part of that report, the Arbitron Nielsen recommended that we don't pay them $10,000 to purchase those reports because they gave us a sneak peek and said they're pretty much the same as 10 years ago when we did purchase them. I can't speak to the decline in donors, but I can say, of course, we are always looking at doing more, right? Continuing what is already there, including podcasts and posting online, which is usually done by volunteers, but we do have a few paid producers. But that all comes with extra resources, extra cost. So that's the trade-off. We are looking at ways to increase video content and production and more streaming audio. But again, I just don't think it's a settled issue, which is why I apologize to Susan for interrupting, but I was kind of thrown off by that because I thought we had talked about this.
Thank you, Shally. Are there any comments? Go ahead.
I'll just make one quick comment because I agree this isn't, other than the fact that it's a very pressing issue for WORT, I don't think this is necessarily the forum for it. But I do want to say that I am concerned in Nielsen, Arbitron is one thing, but I don't want us to get into assumptions of this is popular, so we should do this without actually surveying the potential listenership of younger listeners in some kind of way that is more comprehensive than we have done of what it is, why they use those platforms, and why when they use those platforms, WORT might not be one of them, even if they knew that our content was there. Does our content match what they want? And that's what I want a committee, I hope a committee can help address. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you very much. And we'll put that as an action item in the July board meeting with the new members we elect today.
I do have a quick question. I have, every year when we have candidates, I have a pretty standard list of questions that I have for them, and I have that list of questions.
Please
what I'm wondering about is how fair is it for the first person to hear all the questions and answer them off the top of the head, and the other to have the chance to put together a more thoughtful answer?
Too late.
Can I answer that since I'm the first person? I'm fine with it, because if anything pops up that I need to add, I will jump back in and I will share it, because part of being on the radio is being put on the spot. So go for it. Give me what you got.
I guess what I'm saying is, would it be more fair if the other people who are going to answer the question were not able to hear the questions until they were going to address them themselves?
I don't think that's possible to do at this point, so.
Okay. I mean, it would be possible if they signed out of the meeting and then we came back on when we asked them to. But if
I think
more
mostly
effort,
Rebecca's saying she doesn't care. She'll take it and, and not find it a disadvantage.
and Ben and Kai and Dean, and that's fine. Okay. If none of the candidates object, then that's fine.
I'm fine with just going ahead as is.
Okay. Rebecca, if you would please go ahead with your statement, and then we'll ask questions afterwards, after your presentation, okay?
Sounds good. I didn't prep anything formal to actually read. So my name is Boss Lady. If you're not familiar with me, I've been on the Universal Soul Explosion for the past 10 years now with WORT, and my formal name is Rebecca Barber. So outside of WORT, I am the housing coordinator with Nehemiah Dignity Housing Program. So I manage housing for formerly incarcerated men. There's a lot of connection with the show and the listening base being late night Saturday night, along with what I do during the week as my formal paycheck job, which is actually really exciting because you get a chance to see what we're doing on air and how it relates to actual people as they go through their journey, listening to the radio, coming out, commenting, etc. I want to say, and this is, I'm not going to touch it, but I want to say thank you actually to Susan for sharing some of those things that she did, because part of what I'm looking forward to is looking at some of these ideas and encompassing kind of everything really, and trying to get to where we want to be, looking at what worked and what seems to be working. But also, one thing I know from 10 years of being with WORT is that we're all about change, but we also know what consistency is. So there's a loyalty to the community and there's a loyalty to the programming. But I think the fact that overall our WORT family has been able to address change as it comes up, and fluctuate with that is part of the reason why our supporters stay so true and so strong. It's not just the music, because music can express emotion, it can create change, it can prevent change, it can give you a voice when you don't know what to say or when you're not being heard. I mean, what we do is so important on so many levels. And just to be able to have been a part of it for so long, I'm really looking forward to being able to dive in on a deeper level and see what more we can do, or I should say what more I can do to contribute. A lot of times in our conversations, we mention being underground, but I also think that part of what we need to go into now is how do we get feet into the underground and show up and be visual and see what radio does off the air to be on the air, if that makes sense, just to be a part of the community and get a little bit deeper into that and be seen and reach out and communicate with a more diverse crowd, a more diverse population, the underserved population, and just kind of grow the diversity and the inclusion between all of our programming, our hosts, our listeners, our staff, our financials. And I know it's like a big ball and it's a lot of information, but I think, like I said, with the fact that we've been here for so long, no matter what is going on in the world, this really does speak volumes to, we're getting something right. But I think, as times change and as situations change, it's just imagining now, what do we already have in place and how do we bridge the gap to humanize all those things and really be able to stand up for the community and get engaged and move forward. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to at least speak and to be here for as long as I have, especially when it wasn't supposed to be that way. And we stick around, us crazy WORT DJs. We stick through it. We fight. Right. You can't get rid of me that easy, but if you have questions, let me know.
Yay.
I have questions.
Okay, you're first.
So I have a bunch of them. So if anyone has other ones, I'm happy to, step up, not do all of these at once. But the first question I have is, how many WORT meetings have you attended live, virtually, or listened to via our website where the audio is posted during the past 3 months?
Oh, 3 months? what, 3, 2, 3? I don't
Okay.
know what I ate for dinner last Friday, so that's a hard one.
Right on.
Okay, but you have been, what I'm trying to go to with this question is, you have an idea of what you're getting yourself into and what the board usually addresses as part of their affairs, as opposed to not having an idea of what really the board at WORT does.
Yep.
Okay, second one. Either from listening or attending these meetings or from your own experience with WORT, what are the 2 or 3 most important challenges you think WORT faces?
I would say, pardon me, I would say for me, the number one challenge is anytime that you have a demographic that's so spread out. You have different age groups, different walks of life, different backgrounds, different, where you're going in the future. Whatever. You have a lot of ideas that are coming together, and it's hard to accept new things sometimes, old dog, new trick, but it's also hard for new things to understand what needs to stay the same. So I think that whole dynamic is going to be a challenge, as it always has been, as it always will be, but it's a good challenge because the strongest team has representation from every corner and every angle, because where one lacks, the other one picks up the strength. So if everybody always agreed at the same time, you're really, you might not get as far as if everyone has that individuality, which a lot of times can cause conflict. But at the same time, the more thinking hats, the better, because really your foundation can be stable. So I'm looking forward to it, but I think that's a challenge. The other challenge, I think, is just, no, I think that might be the biggest challenge. I don't say that there's more than one, because I think once you get over that, you can pretty much get through the rest of the things that we have, as far as concerns go. Staying on the air, no dead air, that could be a challenge. I don't know. Yeah, there's other things, but I think the first and foremost, just getting that communication piece there and understanding that everyone's there for the same ultimate reason and the ultimate goal is it makes it worth the challenge.
So the rest of the questions, a few more, are addressed to board members' fiduciary duty, which is the most important duty that a board member has to a nonprofit. Can you explain what your understanding is of fiduciary duty and what that entails as a board member?
Good Lord. Are you kidding?
You would like me to explain fiduciary duty? I'm a very good speller, and right now I don't even know if I could spell fiduciary correctly.
Okay.
However, that is
Go ahead.
something, as my answer would go, that is something that if I'm not familiar with it, I would be happy to research it, find out what that is, and act accordingly. That's the only best answer I can give you.
Great. Have you read any of the audited financial statements for the past couple of years that are on our website?
Lord.
I did look at a few of them. I read it more
Okay.
like a menu, though, where you kind of, there was no pictures, but I did, focus in on certain areas and gave a head nod or a ooh, and then I didn't really do much with it after that.
Okay, that's fine. And then was there anything in those audits that raised any concerns for you?
Not directly.
And so our bookkeeper, every month as part of the board, you're going to be receiving financial reports for from our bookkeeper. And those include monthly profit and loss statements and also a monthly balance sheet that is good through the end of the previous month before the meeting. Are you familiar with profit and loss statements and balance sheets?
Yes.
And that's all about my questions. I just want to say a quick thing. I got to know Rebecca from Pledge Drives because I actually was going in and out of there while she was there and had a chance to talk to her. And I just want to say, Rebecca, that one of the things that I hope is able to happen is I found out so much of what you were doing in the community for hip hop and rap. And I hope we have the opportunity to have some of our volunteers bring some of that work and have us be able to partner with them for some of the work that they're doing outside the station. I would love to see that happen after I found out about all the stuff that you did that wasn't really something the station was involved in. So thank you for that
I
work.
appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I have a couple of questions. Go ahead.
Can I add real quick, just for those of you who don't know, I'm also involved in the Urban Community Arts Network and also the GMMC, which is the Greater Madison Music City.
Yeah.
So there's other organizations that I've been in connection and communications with for several years. So that's part of what she's talking about as well, if you didn't know.
Okay. I have a couple of questions that Rich Samuels sent in by email. What contacts do you have within the Madison area philanthropic community that might be leveraged to bring additional funding to the station?
Okay, so I guess one thing I just mentioned obviously would be the two organizations, the Urban Community Arts Network, also the Greater Madison Music City. Also in partnership with Nehemiah, we do a lot of outreach with the community that's formerly incarcerated, with the Black-led organizations, celebrating Black excellence. In 2 years, my office is going to be in the Center for Black Excellence that they're building on Park Street. So there's a lot of direct work that's being done, not just being talked about, but is, feet to the ground work every single day. It's 24/7 that we do this outreach, or I should say that I do this outreach, this job, this connection, this community. It's being done. It's not just a couple hours on the weekend, but it's consistent. So as far as networking and things like that, the one thing they always say is your network is your net worth. So I'm a firm believer of that, and everything starts and ends on relationships.
Thank you. And then his other question was, what measures would you take to strengthen WORT's internet platform?
Oh, a lot. Word of mouth, active presence, behind the scenes, on the scenes. I just got a stand for a banner. Wink, wink. Anything and everything that's within our power that we can think of to do it. I'm ready to brainstorm and put that dry erase board marker to work and go with it. So that's what we do. It's a storm coming. I have an umbrella, and if not, I'll build one.
Thanks. Other questions from the Zoom meeting? Thank you very much. Then we're going to move on to the next candidate, and that will be Kai Brito.
Yo.
Hi,
Hey, Kai Brito here. My involvement in the WART is through the Monday 8 o'clock buzz with Brian Standing. So I think he's somewhere here on this call. I think I saw him earlier. So that's what I do. I've done some new spots. I used to do Perpetual Notion Machine a lot more back in like 2016 when I started. But yeah, it's been harder and harder to produce those 30-minute shows. So just doing hour-long live productions. So that's my involvement with WART. In my day job, I do video work and housing work for Sustained Dane. I also just recently started a new job in a Solidarity Realty. And then I also pick up some late night shifts at Short Stack Eatery. So my involvement at WART, I like it because it's Madison Community Radio, right? It's emphasis on the community. The people make the community, and they make spaces into places. It's the relationships that bring us together. And I think that's what I've liked so much about it. Like, that's how I got involved with, like, Shali, got me into radio and as like a student at WSUM, and then I moved to WORT, and I liked meeting all the people there, and that's what made it so vibrant for me to see and learn and understand just a lot more things about politics and music and just life in general. And I think that that's the approach that we need to take when we're going to involve other people from my generation too. So that's kind of my biggest interest in that. I thought that my perspective from being from this generation and still involved with people from younger generations would be like, what can I do to bring them into here? What can I do to like increase their interest in radio and show them, hey, this is actually a cool thing. And, you should be part of it, and you can reflect your values into it. And you have a part of what to say in that makes this community, right? Like we own the airwaves, right? And we get to have a say. We get to put ourselves into these shows and make our individuality heard and just be a part of the community. So that's my take on all this. I mean, I think what I've learned from here is that community radio is probably one of the most democratic ways to do it. So we're going through this democratic process of voting for community board members. So let's just do it. That's what I got to say. Susan, bring it on.
Someone else might have questions, Kai.
But you're so eager.
Okay, so how many ward board meetings have you attended or listened to via our website?
Gotta be honest, I haven't done that.
So you've been with us for a while. Have you attended or listened to any of the ward board meetings?
I might have done one or two. Yeah, I think I've been on a couple engineering meetings. I've done some social media committee stuff, and I think I've listened to an annual meeting before, yeah.
Okay. So you've got a lot of experience with WORT in different ways. What do you view as the two, you can get three if you want, 2 or 3 most important challenges you think WORT faces for its future?
Yeah, these ideas have already been bumped around before, but one I think is like longevity. Like, how do we, we've talked about it all here. How do we bring a younger generation and increase their interest in this form of media as radio, right? But not only just get them interested in it, but also as donors, right? And I think that a lot of my perspective comes from like just being present there. Some of the way, like, it was really nice to see Adrienne. Like, I didn't know that WORT was going to be at Elver Park for It's a Thing. Like, I was just going there separately. I didn't even know that WORT was going to be doing that. So when I saw that WORT was there, I was like, oh, what a pleasant surprise to see them as something that I was going to be going to already normally. Like, that's something on the west side that I actually didn't think that I would see WORT at. Or like making sure that, our community partners are like Sustained Dane, like in my other work, like I go, hey, Baltazar de Santana, like come on WORT and talk about this program, and you should do this cool thing that you should share this cool thing that you're doing on the airwaves. It's like bringing them into this community through the leverage that we have here. Like, we can do we can make your media known, like your work known, and that's the partnership that we have to offer and leverage for ourselves. So that's the one thing, and that's the problem I see, and I think there's solutions for it. It just requires a lot of upfront work of just being there, showing up, and saying that you care about them before they come back at you. And it's not always going to be returned 100%. They're not always going to say, yeah, great, now I'm going to be like a contributor at WORT, like every Thursday night. No, sometimes it's just here and there. Maybe you can rely on them for like a spot on your radio show. But I do think that that's a good way to build relationships within, like our partnership within the community. That's what we're here for. And, that's our job. And whether it brings us the benefit or not, we're going to do it. So I think that's worked for me so far. And yeah, I'd like to see it on maybe like a wider scale. I think on some level we all do it. So longevity is one. And the second one, maybe, I always hear about WORTs like replacing things like a new antenna or like new equipment that needs to be put in the studio, a new water heater we just talked about with Tom buying that. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we can get some committee decisions to, increase that infrastructure and modernize some things. I don't know what the exact solution is, but it sounds like it is a problem that I keep hearing come up. So I don't know exactly what we're going to do about it, but yeah, let's put our thinking hats on and find that solution.
So final question is a little switch up from what I asked Rebecca, because, and I think you're a good one to address this one too, Kai. The idea of community has changed because of the internet. So for instance, I'm a member of a Facebook group that is military brats, kids who grew up in the military. And that's a community that I wasn't able to access prior to the internet. So we all have found ways to redefine community beyond geographical because of the internet. And it's opened up ways for us to explore our interests in genres of music. There's certainly platforms out there where you can get very detailed with your knowledge and follow podcasts of people, number of musicians that have podcasts that I follow. With that expanded idea of community, what do you see as the place for a community radio station? Do we become hyper local in our coverage to still emphasize that geographical fact, or where do you see the fit with the changing idea of community?
Yeah, so first off, I'm just going to mention, Susan just mentioned the military brat thing because of my military school background. I wonder if that was... okay, maybe not, but my vision of community, I think Shawley's always been good about this for news department too, and Molly is the predecessor too. It's taking a local issue, and applying it with like a national context. So like at the national context, like we're talking about like housing eviction moratoriums, like that's something that's going on, but we talk about it, like maybe sure as a nation, right? But we talk about what's happening here. Like, why does it matter to us as a community in Madison? Like, this, I know that that's part of like the geographic, but I think you have to use some of like what's happening with you as an experience to relate to people around you, right? Like, I think that's what makes it good. And I think that's that level of intimacy, like knowing what's happening with ourselves here, like our Madison community, that's the intimate experience that we have the strength of, sharing ourselves. Like, this is what we're feeling now. This is what we're experiencing. This is what we're going through. And we share that out there, and other people relate to us through that. And wherever they are, in like Washington State or like California, Florida, stuff like that, they relate to those experiences by, coming up with how their own experiences reflect that. And I think that's ultimately how any sort of relationships form, whether it's, within our own community here in like Dane County or Wisconsin, or, across the world. So I don't know if it's necessarily hyper local, like you mentioned, but I do think we need to play up our strengths and talk about what we know, which is exactly what's happening here, and make sure that all our stories reflect, what we know and maybe how it can relate into a larger conversation about what's happening everywhere else. Where do we fit in the context of the nation, of the world, as a community of radio listeners, of people that are just a little bit weird. I think that everyone likes to come together on those aspects. What are the things that make us the most similar? So yeah, that needs to be reflected in our programming. And I think we do. Like, we've got a lot of personalities here, like not only just in the Zoom meeting, but in the station in general. So we just need to leverage that intimacy and, share it on the air, and make sure we're sharing it on social media too, so people can see it, right? We just need to make sure people can see exactly all the things that we have to offer. We've got a lot, and sometimes people just miss it sometimes because they're not always online, but you keep at the game, and eventually, people will see the gifts we have to give them.
Thank you, Kai.
I have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Great. Thanks for running Kai and Boss Lady and all of our listener sponsors as well. So in my experience with the News and Talk department, I work with a lot of young people actually who are interested in radio. The biggest barrier to young people, and not to sound too stereotypical, but as a young person, feel like I can help explain, the biggest barrier to young people being able to fully participate has been not WORT itself, but the need to get jobs, and sometimes multiple jobs, and be able to pay the bills, which doesn't leave you with a lot of free time, and radio takes time to do. From 8 hours in one day to less time with more collective shows. But that's the biggest barrier to involving a lot of people at WORT, in my opinion. I'm wondering about your your time and your schedule, and because the board, does take a good amount of work to be an effective board member. I'm wondering about your time and your schedule and how much time you'd be able to devote. And then second part to that question, what you think what you think WORT should do to kind of maybe fix those disparities.
Yeah, well, first of all, this is a perfect example. So back in 2015, when Sarah Hopeful was the news associate news producer, I actually got a scholarship to, I got my first tour of WORT Station with Glenn Mitra all the way in January of 2016. It was my first introduction to the station, and I actually got I don't want to say it's a scholarship, but it was funding to do an internship at WORT, and I worked with Molly and stuff like that to do that. And then, I was able to tell Sarah, hey, Sarah, I know you're doing this for free, but, you should see if you can sign up for this, because, this is how I'm doing it. And, we can make this work. I know you got some other, I think she was waitressing at the time, but, now she was able to get paid for that. And it's all because, I was able to tell her and leverage that scholarship at UW-Madison and make that work. So there are ways that we can make that work within UW community. You just you ask some of the people. Sometimes it literally is just asking some of those people and telling them your situation. And man, it made it work for me. It made it work for Sarah. So those are some of the solutions that maybe I could find. I still have my old scholarship contacts. So maybe that's how we make it work for the new generation of kiddos that want to do exactly what I had done. That's what part of paving a path and legacy is for, right? So make sure that other people, not just for you, but the people, behind you, coming in your footsteps, those people can have the same opportunities that you did that got you to where you are. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in seeing what our solutions for that. As for the second part of your question, the time, that's always been maybe the thing, knowing Shaw, I've went to high school with her. So I've known her for 10 years now? Is it 11? Sometime about a decade that we've known each other. So yeah, she knows that's probably one of my biggest problems that I might have had, but man, my schedule has actually really opened up. My new job is, 10 to 4. I really like to, cut it off there. Yeah, I do work Thursday, Friday nights at Short Stack, but that's it. I just have those nights. I have when I call people for pies, and sometimes the person that's picking up a pie is Dave Weber. So I think if anything, these people, these, extra commitments that I have strengthened, my ties to the Madison community. Yeah, I do get a point where, sometimes it can be too much. And then it's God, do you have any time to do anything anymore? But man, my schedule is really slimmed down, and I've, come to the perspective that, yeah, you need to be intentional and focus on the things that you do have. So yeah, that this is going to be one of only a few more things I pick up. So to me, it's WORT, it's my job, and it's Short Stack because I got to make that money and, pay off all the loans. So we're getting there though. But yeah, no, I understand the time commitment that's going to be offered here. I know that, fiduciary responsibilities are going to be mine. So I think that's just ethics and finance, right? Making sure that we make ethical financial decisions for wards that are outside of our own interests. I think that's what it is. But I think we all, as board members and people that go to WORT, I think we're going to do that anyways. So yeah, I understand, what is at stake here. And yeah, I'm ready to offer myself and my time and, my thoughts and, just effort and love to WORT, because that's why I wanted to do this. I might not know everything about it, but, I'm ready to learn and I'm ready to be there. Show up.
Thank you. Other questions? I will ask the questions that Rich Samuels sent in on email. What contacts do you have within the Madison area philanthropic community that might be leveraged to bring additional funding to the station?
UW Credit Union has always loved me. They actually filmed, I don't know if you remember, but back in 2018, they filmed a video of me in there. Man, I've always, even with Sustained Bane, UW Credit Union's kind of been an ongoing partnership with what we've got. So I feel like UW Credit Union, when the banking community is good, through through like the new real estate connections that I'm making, you know, maybe I can leverage my boss into making a small donation. That's not a promise, but I don't know. I just feel like like I've mentioned in my other statements, I feel like the relationships that I have, you know, I just tell them I'm into WORT. I bring them in the studio for some other thing that they're doing, and then they just get involved. I think that's how I've always done it. Otherwise, another philanthropical, I guess my experience with Sustain Dane as a nonprofit, you know, we ask a lot of people for money. Like that's how we make our living, you know, as WORT also does. So I'm not unfamiliar with the idea of, you know, being like, oh, hey, everyone in this board meeting and staff meeting, you know, like find 2 people to ask or to invite to this event, or to, you know, say like we'll show up at like a Madison, you know, community shares event and donate $50 to that. So yeah, I'm used to that. I guess my only like formal sponsor would be UW Credit Union. So I just wanted to mention some of the other experiences I had. But yeah, that might be like the one sort of organizational philanthropical tie that I have.
Thank you. And then the next question was about the internet platform. What measures would you take to strengthen WORT's internet platform?
Man, I really love, you know, that Shelly mentioned that we're doing things like newscasts, and we're getting on our podcasting. So those are good things, but we really need social media. That's why I wanted to join the social media committee. You know, I took a year off social media, and I'm coming back, you know, I'm finding that like, you know, it's getting involved. You know, everything's about the stories, right? I feel like we just need to make our presence more known, and we need all of us to, you know, make a collective effort onto, you know, what sort of media we're having. I mean, I've seen on the Facebook, everyone's happy, you know, like all those posts have been about like hosts coming back online. Everyone loves to see that. You know, we just need to make happy content that people can see, you know, broadening our reach outside of just like, you know, our page, you know, like we're on our page, but you know, it works with community the other way, you know, like Susan mentioned the military brats. Maybe we need to get on Reddit and like post on other pages and be like a normal contributor to them. Like if there's like a radio professionals page on like Reddit or on Facebook, maybe we go in that community and like we comment on there, or like we share our own things in there. It's that two-way street that we need to build, and not just with it, like not just building ourselves, but you know, giving some other people some effort to build themselves too. So I think that works on social media platforms too. And yeah, I'd be interested in looking into what options exist for doing that, so we can strategically do that and get some good return on investment for that.
One quick follow-up question for you, Kai. I've been mulling over this, and I think you could be really helpful with this. It would be wonderful if we could talk real estate agents into including a WORT, you know, larger brochure that had our schedule and what we offered as a station to people that are moving into the neighborhood. And I think that's something that with your real estate work, you might have an idea of being able to, what would make that attractive to real estate agents. Because I know a lot of them prepare welcome packages for clients that are new to the neighborhood. And so that's something I'd be interested in following up with you on.
Yeah, most certainly we can have that conversation. I know that, you know, my boss, Darcy, is really interested in Devil's Advocate radio, but I've since convinced her to listen to some WORT, or at least she said she would. So I don't know if maybe it's slowly taking over her mind. So yeah, that's definitely a conversation that we can have, because, you know, I create the neighborhood, like the definitions of neighborhoods for like a lot of it's Marquette neighborhood, like Starkweather Creek. Most of the work's on the east side, so not exactly like central downtown, but it's not like we don't do it, right? So yeah, that's definitely a conversation to be had about that. Yeah, that might be an interesting way to get people, make people aware of WORT, especially if they're just coming to Madison. Like, hey, this is a community attraction. You know, you should know, like, if you want to know about things, you know, listen to this station, and you'll hear about all the events that are going on. So yeah, leverage.
Thanks very much.
Tips.
I need to sort of pay more attention to the clock because we're taking longer than I thought we would here. But
Dave, can I mention one thing real quick before we jump on? I'll make it fast.
Yes.
Just a couple things for everyone to just think about is while Kai was answering, good job, by the way, but while he was answering, there was some other questions coming through and comments, and I was looking at that. So one thing to throw out there is that, you know, being radio, there's still this whole visual aspect. You know, everybody is multi-tactile or visual or audio, or however you learn, or however you grasp material, or however you soak in data, whatever the case may be. So even though we have this vision of, you know, radio being some voice that's coming through the speaker and you don't really see them, there's like a visual aspect that maybe we need to start thinking about, especially because given the fact of what we've been through for the past year, having so many things be only visual, we lost human contact. So there's like this desperate need now to kind of revisit that human contact. So that's one thing that I would throw in, is that, you know, the voice or the face of radio, I guess, is going to look differently, maybe. And then the other thing too is, you know, when I had an assistant on the show, he actually was getting paid work study. At the time, it was Medicine Media Institute, which is no longer, but, you know, there's other opportunities for us to turn this into some educational opportunities for the community as well. And real quick, this is why I wanted to share this. I saw some things coming through talking about, you know, like the content of the music, or if it has to be late night or things like that. So one thing we need to do is maybe educate our community on having the ability to, you know, the internships we have going on, educate that's there, that's available. Also, what does it take to be in radio, on radio? What if you're an artist, or you want to be the producer, you want to be engineer? Things like that, like what does that look like? And maybe provide some more education within the community, which also draws listeners to the fact that, hey, WORT's really going above and beyond their programming to involve listeners, especially those of the demographic that don't necessarily have access to those educational resources. And maybe you'll have artists that now make clean music, or maybe the fact that they're only on late night, now this opens up an opportunity to have daytime. I'm just saying, you know, there's a lot of opportunities here. When Between the Waves conference came through, I was actually a speaker there. And then also we did a couple conferences where we talked to different community members who came about the difference between like online radio, commercial radio, college radio, and then also community radio. So there's different education levels I think we could open up to try to not just get that involvement, but repetition is key. And just like Kai said, you know, not expecting to see us at the event on the West Side, but doing so, that's going to stick in their minds, or seeing the WORT banner around, or seeing those ads with WORT, or just us getting a little bit more involved in many other aspects. As long as you start placing yourself where maybe you never went before.
We got time.
Then we can address, you know, you're going to get your listener sponsors, because now we're sponsoring them as well, if that makes sense.
Thank you. I'd like to move on now to our next candidate. And Ben, I'm going to mangle your name. Ben Pfeifferek, is that close?
Actually, that was really, really close. And that's probably actually how it's supposed to be pronounced, but we don't actually pronounce it that way. But so you actually are probably pronouncing it correctly. But so I'll try and go fast. But so hello, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to speak today. My name, can everybody hear me, just by the way? Great, just making sure. My name is Ben Pfeifferek. I'm a candidate for a listener sponsor board slot. Real quick background for me, I was born in Madison, moved to Lawrence, Kansas in elementary school, came back for college, went to UW, majored in journalism. After college, worked at Epic for almost 5 years, then switched gears mightily when I got into home brewing and winemaking really hardcore, and started working at the Wine and Hop Shop over on the Monroe Street in 2005. In 2012, I took over the shop from the previous owner. I'm one of the co-founders of Working Draft Beer Company, which started over on the east side in 2018. Home life, I'm married, have a son, have a grandson, lots of four-legged furry creatures running around the house. I'm super excited to have Ford Madison Football Club in town and back in person. If you haven't been to a game, they're awesome. and I'm currently working on an accounting degree through Madison College. Over the years, how I've supported WRT, the Wine and Hop Shop has sponsored 4 shows annually and donated lots of home brewing and winemaking starter kits and other items to different events for almost the last 10 years. Working Draft has taken part in No Crap on Tap fundraisers and is part of the Punch a Pint program as well. And my wife and I have also made various individual donations over the years. What I like most about WRT are the values, especially the inclusiveness of WRT and its community. WORT amplifies so many different voices from so many different communities. I just think that's wonderful. And obviously the programming, pretty much the entire Saturday lineup is just fantastic. One little side note, the opening song to That's Entertainment was the song that my wife and I chose to play right after we said I do at our wedding. So that one makes me smile every time I hear it every Saturday morning. Mel Floyd's great. It often makes me sad and infuriates me, but I love listening to Democracy Now! As well. It's really just the diversity of everything. I love that you can turn on the radio or the app and hear shows in different languages, music from different continents, news you don't get on CNN.com, and just so much great locally generated content. Besides sponsoring and listening to shows, I haven't been real involved in WRT up until now. A lot of that just has to do with my schedule previously with the Wine and Hop Shop, and then opening the brewery, and then actually being a part of a third business, and then helping shepherd those 3 businesses through the pandemic, including getting PPP loans and other grants and getting them forgiven. I just really haven't had much time for anything else in my life. But as things are calming down and we're putting systems in place within the businesses, I've got more time, and I've been looking for different ways to plug into the community than just through my businesses. It's a reason that I have decided to go back to school to get that accounting degree. I'm hoping to bring my on-the-job experience and the knowledge I'm gaining through my degree work to small businesses and organizations that I care about. To that end, I actually applied for the WRT bookkeeper position that was open earlier this year, but I was foiled in my pursuit. But I do feel I can bring to WRT a lot of what I've learned being an owner and operator of 3 different businesses, including doing all the bookkeeping and payroll and really managing all the financial stuff for all the 3 different businesses. I do on a quarterly and monthly basis for the different businesses, generate profit and loss statements, balance sheets, statements of cash flows, and then I compare those data to previous periods, prior years, current financial model, and try to identify unexpected changes, endeavor to try and find the root cause of those, and then either propose changes to the company's operations or tweak the financial model so it's more accurate. And also just, being on the board would be a tremendous opportunity personally for me, just to learn from other smart, engaged, caring people, and also just be a part of WRT, which really is one of the things that makes Madison as awesome as Madison is. And then just moving forward, my vision for WRT, WORT does so many amazing things already. I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. I did go back and listen to the last 3 or 4 board meetings, just to try and get an idea of what as an outsider, it's hard for me to tell what the issues are, but it seemed like, and obviously a lot of this was talked about earlier today, that the listener base and donor base is getting older and perhaps moving away from listening to traditional radio, and also while WRT is in a good financial position now, there were some concerns about that the most recent pledge drive fell short of goals, and that could be a continuing trend, because who knows what's going to happen post-pandemic, with people's finances. And so I just really hope to utilize my knowledge and experience to help WRT stay strong, both financially and as a community partner, enhancing WRT's already amazing community outreach and fundraising and operations in general. So that's pretty much it. Thanks, for your time and consideration, and just, to everybody on this meeting. I just want to say thanks for everything you do for WRT, because Madison is just way better with it.
Thank you so much. I'd like to reduce the question and answer time to try to wrap the meeting up sooner. So Susan, can you limit it to one question?
Well, he said he's listened to the last 3 or 4 months, so question answered. He's identified the challenges that he thinks are there. I mean, I'm just looking over the questions to see what
He addressed
didn't
them all. Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, have one left that you didn't answer as far as I can tell. Can you explain what a board member's fiduciary duty would entail?
Yeah, I think so. I think Kai, got it pretty good. That just, you're supposed to operate in an open, honest, conscientious manner and put the needs of the organization over any personal needs that you may have. That's my understanding. So yeah, sorry to steal your answer, Kai.
I don't have another question then. That was my one.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on now. Thanks, Ben. Kurt Cobelt, you're the next candidate. Would you like to make a statement? You're muted, Kurt.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have been on the board for one term, and I've also been a member of the programming committee. I'm the secretary of that committee, and that's my ward involvement. Having kind of dipped my toe into the water, I'm eager to continue finding out more about the organization and contributing to running it. Outside of WORT, I am a union side labor attorney. I've been practicing law for about 40 years. I represent unions as well as individuals in discrimination cases and wage and hour cases of all types. I also serve on the board of a group called Worker Justice Wisconsin, which is a faith labor coalition whose purpose is to assist kind of low-income, undocumented workers who have discrimination or wage payment issues. And over the years, I have run, or been part of running many different law firms, as well as helping to run unions. I've been employed by several unions too, so I'm familiar with all the challenges of raising money, as well as kind of the day-to-day administration of large organizations. So that's all I have as an introductory. I'll certainly answer questions.
Thank you very much. Susan, did you want to hit any?
Sure. Hey, Kurt, what could, from what I see, from where I stand as being part of the finance committee and listening to most of the board meetings, I think we overwhelm board members with information that is so detailed from the profit and loss and even the balance sheet. What do you think we could do to provide better information, more understandable information to the board that goes beyond just the reassurance from the finance committee that we're doing fine, or here's how much money we have? What do you see as something that we could do for board members to help that understanding of exactly what our financial position is and what to be concerned about?
Well, actually, yeah, I looked at lots of profit and loss statements and financial statements over the years as part of, my responsibilities to help run organizations. And I think that the information that the treasurer provides is kind of the standard information that any organization gets. And I think it's done in a timely and comprehensible kind of way. I offhand, I can't think of any particular ways of kind of improving it and making sure that, or if there's anything that's being overlooked. I think the statements are comprehensive and kind of the state of the art.
Very good. Susan?
Well, it's just that for a lot of boards, people have a professional backgrounds like you do, Kurt. But many of our board members don't work regularly with profit and loss and don't see them. And I feel like we don't spend a lot of time saying these are the important lines on here to be paying attention to, or when you see a difference, this should be a question or stuff. So that was what I was getting at. I appreciate that you understand profit and loss. Sounds like Ben knows it backwards and forwards too. But I do know there's board members that don't.
I think that this isn't the best forum to have that discussion. But
that's great.
Thanks.
So I just was explaining why I was asking that question. I was not questioning Kurt's knowledge at all.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Okay, well, if I can just briefly, I mean, certainly that's an issue with board members who haven't had a whole lot of experience there, but I think the solution to that would be for the board member or the treasurer to sit down with somebody who may appear to be struggling with those things and try to explain them, you know, how things work one-on-one and get that person up to speed.
Great, thanks. That's what I was looking for, a question about addressing that. Thank you, Kurt.
Very good. Are there any other questions for Kurt? Then moving on, Dean Loomis. Dean Loomis, are you in the house?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, David?
I can hear you. Great.
I'm ready to go.
I should say that Dean has served on the board in the past, and Dean and I go way back. But I look forward to your statement.
Yeah, David, it's 50 years. Anyway, I'm the last one, and hang in there with me a little bit more. Are you getting me all, David? Am I in? Are you hearing me, David?
Yes.
Okay.
We're hearing you. Yeah.
There are, let me start by saying about 10 years ago, WORT had a very extensive strategic planning session, which involved community members, listener sponsors, staff, board members, and it was quite good. And at that time, after it was done, it was a 2 or 3 month process. After the document that was created had about 8 different categories of the recommendations, and I wanted to get on the board to try to implement as many of those recommendations as possible. And so I ran and got on for a 3-year term. This was, like I said, about 9 years ago. In that time, I was working full-time for a nonprofit. So I was understood how a nonprofit works. And then a year after I got on the board, I actually ran and got elected to the Madison School Board. So I understood what a board member responsibilities are from both ends, from being the employee of a board and then being on a board, a large board. And what I learned is that there are 3 main responsibilities to being on a board. The first one is fiduciary, as Susan brought up. And fiduciary responsibility is primarily the operations of the finances. You have to, as Kurt was talking about, primarily understanding, developing the budget, then implementing the budget, then monitoring it monthly, and then reviewing the audit at the end of the year. Which leaves me kind of like the second main responsibility is that of a board is to then develop policies that do 2 things. That ensure that the budget you create, that money gets sent to where it's supposed to go, that and then also the policies then pretty much enhance and promote the mission of WORT, of the mission statement, which is provide programming that reaches across the community, into communities, and also provide a platform for folks that rarely don't get access to an opportunity to up to a full radio station. The other unique thing about the WORT board is that there are some management responsibilities. Normally, a board hires 1 employee. That's either the executive director, or in a radio station would be a station manager. We don't have that. the collective staff operation that we have, there are some board responsibilities that have to be done as far as hiring and even some supervision and evaluation, which are kind of tricky. I was very hesitant to get involved in that when I was on the board because I was working full time, and then I got involved with the school board, so I was pretty stretched pretty thin. Right now, I'm retired. I am on the current board of the Commonwealth Development Company, which is another nonprofit housing program. My employee, when I was employed, I ran a program that provided permanent housing to folks that were homeless and mentally ill. Commonwealth is also an affordable housing program with a broader target population, as well as developing and providing entrepreneurial opportunities for new businesses. So those are three main responsibilities that I now have the time to cover all of those. The first two I'm very familiar with. The third one, now that I have time, I can actually go to the station as a volunteer, which I plan to do now that we're getting to open back up. Put my time in there, observe the staff, and be a little bit more confident that I would be able to accurately take on the management responsibilities that the board has in this type of situation. The discussions that were brought in some of the other candidates when they were talking and some of the other questions, one of the things that a board might want to do is maybe have another broad strategic planning sessions where we can target some of these issues that were brought up. How do you market? How do you use these new social networking platforms? And some of the strategies that you should do to market, it has to be numerous, consistent, and constant. So what are those ones that we should use? We're beginning to open up these new opportunities through the apps and the other ones. How do we market that? So what's the best way to do that? These are questions that the board and a combination with the staff are going to have to figure out, and then we could certainly tap into our community networks and supporters to help us answer that question, and then we can implement these things. And the board can say, okay, here's where we're going to go. So maybe it's time to have a larger conversation around where WORT is. The idea of our aging donor base, that's not new. It's been going on for over 20 years. The shrinking and also the challenge of getting to younger listeners, another one, not new. There were some questions in the chat about, well, why maybe we should reschedule the way we program to make it easier for young people to listen during the day or different times. Those are why we have the committee structure we have, so we can maybe perhaps rethink that and put that open to that same question. I have my opinions on these things, but the actual decision is going to have to get made by a lot of input from the volunteers that we have and other research that we can do, that we can conduct with. So again, I want to keep this kind of short because I thought this got a little bit stretched out a little bit too much, and I am the last one. I hope I covered some of the things that you wanted to hear, and again, any questions that you want to have, let's get this out, and I can finish it off. One other little minor thing. My name's spelled Loumos. If you have to write it in on the agenda, it's a little off, but I'm kind of used to that. It's an odd name. So
I'm embarrassed.
Go right ahead. I'm done, David.
That was my spelling mistake. Sorry.
That's all right. It's not. I had it my whole life.
Yeah. Questions?
Dave, there's a question in the chat. It says, for Kurt and Dean, what are your proudest accomplishment or mints while on the WORT board?
Well, it's my turn, so let me go, and then Kurt, feel free to jump in. There were numerous ones. We were able to implement several of the recommendations that were on that plan. I don't know if it's still on the website or not. One of the funniest ones which was important, is that we got a brand new phone system and all kinds of, if you were listening on to the DJs at the time, a lot of them, especially during the next pledge drive, were all confused on how to run it. But the phone system we had been there for 20 years. It was way out of date, and we finally got one that worked, and that was a good moment. It was a $20,000 dip that we had to dip into our funds, but it was well worth it, and now we even have a better one now. I think we were able to continue the ongoing work of WORT. So the biggest, I always got a kick out of some of the statements around the new phone system. There's, as people confronted with new technologies, and even some of our volunteer programmers are kind of old and not used to new technology. So sometimes they hit the wrong buttons and didn't work, but they figured it out. Kurt, I'm done, so go right ahead.
Yeah, just very briefly, when I was on the programming committee, I think one of our best things that we as a group accomplished was to come up with an annual kind of renewal form that every host is required to sign. And it gives both the music director as well as the news director a way to kind of hold hosts accountable to certain things that hosts should be doing, but not all hosts did. For example, having a social media presence, making sure that the host participates fully in any kind of training that's needed. Also making sure the host participates in the fundraising drives. And so there's a whole checklist of things there that if they're not being done by the host, the directors now have a way of kind of holding that host accountable. So I think that's a good way to make sure that the hosts are meeting all of their responsibilities in a way that builds the station.
Great. Any other questions?
I do have a question for Dean. When you were talking about being able to put more time into the supervisory aspect of being at the station more often, did I hear that part right? I just want to make sure I'm repeating.
I've had some very interesting and unique experiences in the employment that I've had over the last 50 years. The last one was in actually being the executive director of a 12-person nonprofit, doing some very difficult work, working with homeless, mentally ill people, getting them into housing, maintaining the properties, over 37 buildings that I purchased and managed, and then making sure that the folks that we housed stayed there. So that the kind of things that our staff went through from the case management, from the maintenance of it, and then all the administrative stuff. What they had to go through was kind of unique and very tense and draining. So the types of trainings and the type of support that I was able to supply my staff, because one of the key factors in, I think, not only what I did at Housing Initiatives, but also at WRT, is have consistent and long-term employees. And it's a small nonprofit with so many personalities and the different things we're trying to do. We have to develop board policies that support the staff. And we
okay, I hadn't actually asked my question. I was just asking you whether I had phrased what you had said correctly.
Refresh me.
Okay, so one of the things you said that you hadn't been able to address in your first time on the board in as detail as you would have liked to was the supervisory aspect of what the board does.
Yeah.
And that you hope to spend more time at the station with that as a volunteer. Or did I miss some of that, or is that a misstatement?
The reason you can do that is as a board member, trying to evaluate, and we had to do evaluations of
No,
staff.
I'm just asking, did I do I have your statement right? That's all I'm asking,
Yes.
Dean, because I'm going to ask a question based
Yes.
on my understanding of what you said.
Yes.
Okay. So you are running for a listener sponsor seat, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So my understanding, and other board members or other people can correct me, is that you're kind of limited to committee work, the board meetings, and maybe if you want to work at an event or answer phones, but otherwise you wouldn't be able to have a volunteer position at the station as a listener sponsor. Am I correct with that?
Okay, well, thanks for that bit of information, which gets back to my point about the unique situation that the WRT board, we have management responsibilities. So one of the challenges of being on the board of WORT is how do you do that and do it fairly? Especially if you're not down at the station, if you're working full time, you don't interact with the staff that much. Some of them, you don't even know who the staff are because you never see them. So it's a real challenge for board members. I found that when I was working full time, then getting on the Board of Education, I felt a real hesitancy to review that responsibility. Is how am I supposed to adequately review a staff? It's one of the challenges of WART. It's a unique staff collective with board responsibilities. It's a challenge, and I felt uncomfortable at the time weighing in on that. So I think it's a question that the has to consider what to do.
I think there's Susan has a misunderstanding. A listener sponsor member of the board can volunteer. It does not change their status on the board. They are still a listener sponsor member of the board, or they're in a listener sponsor seat, if you will, and that doesn't change for the term. But that doesn't prohibit them from volunteering.
So that wouldn't interfere because, well, the purpose of what I was trying to point out is exactly that. It's a difficult, challenging responsibility that's somewhat different for the board. I don't see how you can do it adequately and fairly by not going down to the office and observing and interacting with the staff. So this time around, when I'm retired, I'll spend more time so I can do that, and I'll feel better about that responsibility as opposed to never going down there when staff are there, maybe showing and going to meetings and the program meetings. I just thought that was very unfair and not a good way to meet that responsibility. So to meet that question is I want to spend more time there so I can interact with the staff, get to know them, observe how things are functioning, and I can get feel better and get a more accurate information when we come to staff decisions.
Okay, so this is the part where I'm interested because, Dean, I average about 55 hours a week at Ward. And that's being pretty concentrated, and I'm not accounting some of my time at home. If you want to come in and meet with me and find out what I'm doing, and that's going beyond what I'm submitting as board reports and different reports that I work on and different committees that I work on, there's a concern that that's adding to, while it might help your understanding of what I'm doing and stuff, I'm kind of seeing that having board members stop by, and if other board members pick this up to come and chat with us and what are you doing, and I'm going to stop by, that's kind of adding to my workload.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that I would not want to do. That's why in some method, I think can be developed where board can get a little bit accurate read on staff interactions, how staff are meeting their responsibilities in a way that is ethical, both for the staff and for the board members. You know, how is a board member supposed to make an accurate decision just by reading the report that they get? There's more to it than that, and we all know that. That's why I was very uncomfortable. Nice thing is I have some experience in working with staff in this position and doing this. And I think that there's a way that WORT can answer this question that doesn't add to staff some responsibilities or time, and in an unintrusive way, so that board members can feel much more comfortable with having this responsibility. It's a difficult one, and one that I had real trouble with because of my lack of interaction with staff and just getting a board report or a staff report. It wasn't. I just felt uncomfortable. I thought we were all in an unfair situation. And I think that that's something that the board and staff have to come up with a better solution. Maybe there's a better one now because it's been a while since I've been on the board, but it was always a challenge for me. And I want to, my solution right now would be able to, I could spend more time and I could observe a little bit more how the staff interacts and how they're meeting their responsibilities. So that was.
I appreciate your concern on this issue, Dean, and I share the concern, if not the solution.
I don't know what the solution is, but I thought that that's a possibility. At least I would get a better understanding of how it works. And I would not make any decision based on just the little time I'm there. It's a much more comprehensive review has to be done. And we had one. We had, you were there when I worked there. We had like a 3-page evaluation form that we reviewed, and it was difficult.
I agree.
I think that we've come to the end of the presentations from candidates. Are there any final questions, comments? All right, it's time to vote. If you have not voted, find the voting email link, the voting link in your email. Let me try to say it that way, and vote. Doug or Tom, are you guys on the elections committee? All right. Do we want to give like 5 more minutes for people to vote? 10 more minutes for people to vote? Yeah. All right. So let's take a break for 10 minutes here while you vote.
Is it possible that maybe you could send out an email letting us know, come back to the meeting or something, Dave? Is that possible? Or do you want us just to sit on the phone and wait?
It would be a lot of emails to lots of people, but
okay, then never mind.
Yeah.
If you guys just say 10 minutes, then I'll just come
so
back in 10 minutes.
So it'd be 4:35. So
got it.
Thank you. I'm going to step away for a minute.
Mariah's waving to you, Doug. Hi, y'all.
announce this. Thank you, nice lady.
Are you seeing the chat, Dave?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Rebecca and Kai won for the participating members, and Dean Loomis won for the listener sponsor seat. So congratulations to Dean and to Kai and to Rebecca. Welcome aboard. Thank you very much, Kurt, for your 3 years of service and all your help. I still will keep your number in my directory. Thank you. Kurt, you can still stay on the programming committee, I think, but not as a board member. So, but as a volunteer. So we'll look at that in the future. Now, in the past meetings, when we were doing this live, the board would go away quietly and elect a temporary slate of officers. One way I could do that is by doing a breakout room, or the other is we could adjourn this meeting and just let everybody know what the officers are later. Any thoughts about breakout room versus later?
Dave,
Yes.
this is Stuart. There's no reason not to continue to do it in this forum with everybody watching us. So there's no reason why we need to do it as a separate meeting. We can just adjourn the annual meeting because we've completed its business, and then convene as the board, and anybody who wants to watch the board in that very short session can do so.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? I see Doug's strong thumbs up.
Agree.
Me too.
I'm fine with it.
And
Okay.
anybody who wants to leave can leave, and anybody who wants to stay can stay.
Yeah.
Let us make that so.
Okay, so I move to the business of the annual meeting being completed. I move to adjourn the 2021 WART annual meeting.
Second.
Stu has moved and Rebecca has seconded for
I think
board
it's
members.
Rosie.
Rosie
I'm sorry,
second.
Rosie, I'm sorry.
No worries.
For board members only can vote for this.
No, we're adjourning. No, adjourning the annual meeting is everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All in favor, say aye. Or give me a
Aye.
thumbs up.
Aye.
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 All opposed, say no.
Thank you.
And now you can call that board meeting to order.
Yeah.
All right. I call the short board meeting for the sole purpose of electing temporary officers into session. Stand by for just a moment. Where am I? Too many things going on my screen.
David, could I ask a question? Will the current board officers agree to continue for another month?
No, we have to do another election.
I know. Will the current ones that are current board members, will they all agree to hang on for one more month?
I'm sorry, you got garbled at the end there.
I just wanted to know, just for expediency, will the current board member or the current officers, board officers, agree to continue for one more month?
No, we're going to do a temporary election now, and Alita is going to make a proposal.
Dave, before you do, just for the record, I think you need to establish a quorum of the board being present.
Okay.
I mean, to the extent that you can see people on the screen, that would do it, but I think you need to at least establish for the record that a quorum of the board is present.
I believe a quorum is present.
Okay, there you go.
Alita, go ahead.
All right, so do I have to make a motion to nominate, or what do I have to do?
Yep.
Okay, so I make a motion to nominate the following people for WRT board officers. President, Dave Devereaux Weber. For Vice President, Stu Levitan. For Secretary, Marla. I don't know how to say her name, R. I don't want to mess it up.
That's all right. Thanks, Alita. It's Raboviak.
Raboviak, it's beautiful.
You got
And
it.
for Treasurer, Rosie Ray.
I second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded for a slate of officers, including myself as president, Stu as vice president, and Rosie as treasurer, and Marla as secretary. All in favor say aye or signify by a thumbs up.
Aye.
All opposed say no or signify by a thumbs down.
Oh, Dave, can we put on the record the board's great appreciation to Marty and Alita for their service in the position of treasurer and secretary over the last term?
Yes.
Thank you, Marty and Alita.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Marty has expressed the desire to be on the finance committee in the future to help ease the transition, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
So he can show you where the bodies are buried. So
Yeah. Where's the jars of money, Marty?
Health committee.
there's this really.
There you go.
So that is all the business we have or can conduct as the WRT board during the annual meeting. So
Dave, do you want to ask board members to communicate with you as to their desired committee appointments that you can then reflect on and make at the next meeting?
I will do that. I will ask you all in an email, and what I'm going to do is send an email with a link to the list of the committees and a little bit about the committees, so that the people who haven't been on the board can consider that. And then at the July meeting, we will proceed with committees as well as a full agenda. I will be the president is the person who keeps the agenda. So if you want something to be put on the agenda, just shoot me an email or text or.
Dave, I sent you an email earlier today for an agenda item, okay?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
What is the date of the July meeting?
The 21st.
Thank you.
And we're getting out with 6 minutes to spare.
Woohoo.
Thank you all.
Thank
Do I
you.
need to make a motion to adjourn, Dave?
Yes, please. Let's do that.
Okay. So I move to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, Doug moved to adjourn on chat. He beat you. So
Oh,
who seconded?
Doug.
Who
Second.
seconded?
I will do the second motion.
Okay, Kai seconded the motion. All in favor say aye or a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no or thumbs down. We call this meeting to an end. It's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Luck,
you.
Doug, moving
Bye.
everything. It'll be worth it in the end.
Bye. Congratulations. Bye.
Bye.